Hello and welcome to the second SmoothPHP Screencast. Sorry for the delay between this one and the first one I did. It's been ages now. I've been extremely busy setting up a new office. My fiance is pregnant, and I've been working on other projects. It's been pretty big, but I've got up early to record this one for you guys. So in this one, we're going to be building our first aggregate, as I know that's what people on YouTube and Twitter have been asking. And I think once you got this, it might be a bit of a long screencast, but it's going to give you the building blocks to continue, and then I can answer questions on Twitter or wherever if you run into problems. But before we start, I'm going to plug my own product, because why not? This is a product I'm building called Auto-Deploy-It. It offers continuous deployment of code. So, for example, when you do a commit to your development branch, Auto-Deploy-It can listen and then automatically deploy your code to all your servers. The beauty of this is when you have more than one server, it offers parallel deployment, so you can run commands on the different servers at the same time. For example, where this is good is when you're doing like a composer install in the PHP world. That takes a little bit of time. Even if you've got caching on, it's going to take, possibly 10 seconds if nothing's changed, longer if something has. And if you have two servers that are deploying the same code because you're running a load balancer or something, both of those both those composers can run at the same time. For example, they're not dependent on each other running in order. And when I compared to other products on the market, that seemed like something that didn't happen. So Laravel Envoy or the deployer package. So I decided that I would build my own, and it's going to really help us at work with our event sourcing applications and deploying them. So, if you're interested, I have created this sort of landing page. The prices are a bit wrong at the moment, as I'm still sort of building it. But if you just click on sort of sign up for free, and then just provide your email address and your name, you can then get subscribed to the newsletter, and then I can keep you posted monthly or whenever I sort of release news. But that would be great, because I need people to test it as well. So. Anyway, it's time to build our first aggregate. And like all these things, the best way to do that is to write a test. Now, there is this class here called SpecSetup, which is a class that I've built for other projects, which I should put back up into the event sourcing libraries, but I'll quickly run through it. It allows you to write a test where you give it some events or no events. You then pass it a command from the command bus. So let's say given member is registered, when member changes email, then you provide the command handler, the subject, which would obviously be member, and then the member repository. And then you're free to write tests based on that aggregate. So you can say, did two events get generated? Or one event, sorry. Did the event contain the member's new email that passed into the command? Or did an exception happen? Things like this. So it's really good for writing classes for aggregates, or writing tests for aggregates. So as you know, you need a cable for cable search or whatever. I don't think the product's not going to particularly go anywhere, but might as well keep going. So we're going to have a class here called list cable test. I'm not going to namespace it. Extends spec setup. And I've called that class. I called that thing the wrong thing. One sec. Right. So here are our tests. It's gonna throw a bit of a moan. Let's see if I can get it to come up. Oop. Nope. What is the command? Can't remember the command. Just have to type it in. Terminal. Option F12. Option F12. There we go. So test. Class spec test not found on line 7. Great. Give me 2 moments. Right, and we're back. I did manage to fix it. Just needed to namespace the tests and then put a PSR for requests. Dump the autoloader. Done. Right. So we have our test here called list cable test. Very unique. And we've got a warning saying there's no tests. So I'm going to write a test which I have saved, which is quite simple. So basically it says check 1 event fired. So it's going to set the account, count that from the events stream that the spec test provides, only 1 event is generated. So if I run this now, it's gonna throw a kernel problem, and I expect that's because some of these classes don't exist. But anyway, we'll battle through and ignore it because I need to get this done. So first things first, we're gonna have a new command called list cable. In this command, we're going to do something very simple. We're going to say string cable ID, string cable name. Why not? Keep it nice and simple. I presume just need to switch PHP 7 on. Generate your doc blocks, initialize fields, add getters. Done. Now, bearing in mind you need to extend the base command if you're going to use the SmoothPHP's command bus. This gives you command IDs, which are really useful for when you need to have strong consistency or auditing or anything like that. It's really useful. Anyway, so we've got our list command, so we can add that into our test. So return new list cable UID. No, I don't have it. We'll just call it 1. Or we should have the UUID library. It's not loading in. So, we'll do it like this. UUID 4, whatever. And then the cable name is VGA. In newer versions of SmoothPHP, which I don't really have time to install now, you can just do this, and you would get a unique ID version 4 just generated. So makes life a little bit easier when it comes to generating these, but that works. So what we've said here is when we have this with this event, this command list cable. So given is going to return an empty array because we don't have any events previous to this one. So we're going to list the cable. Now the next thing we need to do is a handler. So we'll do new cable list cable handler. And the first thing this needs is a repository. Great. So we now need to make we'll just make a class called cable repository. Which should have been an interface, unfortunately. Interface. We will build a strong implementation or concrete implementation of this later. But for now, here it is. I'm going to be very lazy and I'm going to go to a different project and I'm going to copy. So I'm going to stop recording to do this because it's ND. Right, we're back. Sorry about that. I could have probably written this, but it's just a bit quicker to do that. So basically we have a cable repository with a load and a save method. The save method takes an aggregate root interface and the load method takes an ID. It can be a value object as long as it's strings. and then returns the actual aggregate, which we don't have at the moment, but we're going to call it cable. So in the cable handler, we're going to pass in the first thing, which is cable repository. And then we're going to have a method called handle, which takes list cable. We call that command at the dot block. So cable repository, we've got that. So we can go back to our test and we can add that in as the repository, just so it knows what interface to mock. So we can now also do the handler. So return new list cable handler, pass in the repository. Subject, we don't have the subject yet, but we'll come to that. So in here we need to, this would be somewhere where you'd make value objects. Make value objects. For the demonstration of this though, I'm not going to bother. Just to make life a bit quicker, we can always do another screencast on the value objects. So we are going to make our cable aggregate now. We'll just make a class called cable, and we're going to list a new cable. So cable equals cable, and we'll add a method called list, and we will pass in the command cable ID and the command name, and then we will save the cable. Save cable. And literally, that's all the handler needs. It needs to apply its change to the aggregate. If it was a command on an existing aggregate, the first bit would just be to do cable equals this cable repository load, pass in the ID of the aggregate. It loads out. You can then apply a method to it, and then you can then save it. Anyway, so list cable. We'll add this method list. So this is actually cable ID, and this is good old PHP storm. Anyway. So the first thing to do is something like this. So this, no, what am I doing? Cable equals new static, because it's a static class, a static method. Cable will extend. We'll extend aggregate root. And it just provides us with a few methods to make life a bit easier. Cable, and then we'll say apply, which is the way you apply events. New cable listed. Note the past tense. Cable ID, cable name. And then I like to pass in a date time object, but we'll use Carbon because it makes life a bit easier. In my systems, we tend to have a date time object that we pass around that has methods for serializing and stuff. So, but we can cover that another time. So, and then you return the actual aggregate. That would literally be it. We need to make this class, which is an event. So we would make a new folder or new namespace called events, and we'll make a new class in there called, or we'll do it this way because it makes life a bit easier, events. So we've got the cable ID, cable name, and parameter because it can't pick it up, Carbon, and then listed at. So these are pretty straightforward as well. Again, as I said, we tend to use value objects in here, but for the purposes of screencasting, just gonna use primitives. So we're gonna add getters. So this implements an event, and it's going to be serializable, which requires a method called serialize. This is really simple. Return. So on the serialize, you return an array. So cable ID. This cable ID. cable name, this cable name, listed at, this listed at, I think if I just string it, it'll be good enough. There we go. Don't forget that. Right then, and to deserialize is even simpler, so we'll return new static data cable ID data cable name new carbon done. This is why we add our own datetime object, because then we can call deserialize on it really easily and don't have to write this out manually each time. And we're also not passing around carbon, because obviously carbon is some other package, so it really shouldn't sort of leak into the domain, but it has. So anyway, so we've listed the cable. So that's that done. So there will be one event generated. Now we need to solve this one here, which is get aggregate root ID. This is used for saving in the repository. Pretty useful. So we need to, first of all, we need to get the cable ID. So the easiest way to do that is to, or the only way to do that, is to do an apply method, cable listed. So this will now listen for when the cable is listed event. So we'll pass that event in. I just tend to call them E. And we'll say something like this: cable ID equals E get cable ID from the event. Oops. I think I'm still coding in arrays. So we'll add a field. It's going to be a string because there isn't anything. And then in here we can do something like this. Return. I like to prefix them with the type of aggregate, just to make it a bit easier in the event store. Cable ID. Done. Now, let's see, is there anything else I need to do in here? So we need to add the subject, which is cable class. No. Should it run? Didn't run. Damn. Why did it not work? Probably something to do with, well, that's not imported. Oh, that's there. This is a really unhelpful error. Test case 22. What's test case 22? Is it because I namespace that? There we go, it is, yeah. Must be type. Okay, see. So this one here just needs to be a string. Otherwise, it gets returned an object. Ta-da! We have got one event or one test that's passed. So let's just prove a couple of other things. So check cable name. Cool. So we want to check the cable name. Test. So we know what the cable name here is. It's VGA. So we should be able to say this assert equals VGA, this get first event, get cable name. Oops. Hopefully see that change to 2 tests, or yeah, 1 test, 2 assertions. Oh, 2 tests, 2 assertions. There you go. So we've now proved that the event that was generated from that aggregate has the correct cable name. We could do the UUID, but that would require saving it to this an attribute to be able to check, and I don't think it's a necessary test. So we're there. That's how you would create your first aggregate. I could quickly demonstrate how you would create a concrete repository, because that's always useful. So we would call it Smooth Cable Repository. So obviously this one is just an interface. So it's extend event sourced repository, implement cable repository. And it's going to ask for just two methods. So first of all, you're just going to return cable, which is the prefix that we put on the aggregate. You can leave this blank and return empty string, and you just need to return cable class, just so it knows which class to build when you ask the Smooth repository. Very simple. Now, when you want to register this, you just need to tell it that when you ask for an implementation of the cable repository, give it a concrete instance of the Smooth cable repository, and then you're golden. So I think I'll leave the screencast there. Any feedback is great. I'll try and do another one, but suggestions are best really of what you want. And I'd really appreciate it if you could all go to auto deploy and give me your email address. Yeah. So until next time, catch you later.